start over again with that good morning and let go of technology. So we started the Wake Up with Wellness series to bring passionate people together, leaders together, to grow and challenge the status quo of well-being. And we look at leadership not as a job title, but anyone that leads with intention, inspires other, influences others. So in my book, we are all leaders. HealthSource Solutions' mission is to enrich employee well-being. And we know it takes a community to do this. We can't do it alone. So that's why we intentionally are bringing together thought leaders, influencers, and problem solvers to look at this in more of a visionary way. So the session today, unlike other sessions and webinars you may have attended, there's not a lot of tactical information, but instead more thought-provoking and higher-level visionary type information. So it's about the how and not so much about the what. So Karen, I'm gonna toss it over to you to give a quick walkthrough of how Crowdcast works.
Yes, good morning. Welcome to our very first Wake Up with Wellness virtual event. I'm Karen Young. I'm the Director of Marketing and Product Management at HealthSource Solutions. And I am tech support today for Mary, along with Jenna Andrews. And this is our first time using Crowdcast, so please be forgiving as we maneuver through this new technology. Before we begin, I will give a little Crowdcast tutorial so you understand all the features, because we're trying to be a little bit more engaging during this presentation so you feel kind of similar to the live event. So first of all, this event plays best on the Google Chrome browser. So if you notice any issues that you're having, just double check that you're on the Google Chrome browser. Next, I'd like to talk about the features. So just to be a little bit more engaging, if you look below the video, you'll see Ask a Question. And this is a place where you can ask Mary a question that she'll answer at the end of the session. And anytime throughout her presentation, you can ask that question. And then you can also vote for questions that have already been asked. So if you like someone else's question, give it a vote. This will rank it higher, and we'll be able to answer those questions in order of most votes to least votes. So even if you don't have a question that you want to ask, go into that Ask a Question and vote for your favorites. We're also going to be doing polls during this, so you'll see polls at the bottom. And this is where Mary wants you to vote on her polls and engage a little bit more. She'll prompt you when to answer those polls. We also have a donate button. So if we've chosen to donate the proceeds from our paid attendees to the Interfaith Outreach. This is a local community charity in our area of the Twin Cities. Interfaith Outreach provides family support, housing, employment, transportation, youth enrichment, and a food shelf. So if you're interested in contributing to this community charity, simply click on the donate link and you will be prompted to enter your credit card information. There's a link for people, and this is where you can see everybody who has registered for Wake Up with Wellness. We also, obviously, a lot of you have already engaged in the chat feature on the far right. We'd just like you to say hello and where you're from right now. Mary has some activities related to the chat feature during her presentation, and she'll prompt you when to engage with that. Lastly, there'll be a button that pops up with links, and we'll connect you to that. It might be up there already right now, I think, as word cloud. So different times throughout the presentation, there'll be a link that we'll connect you to. So that's just a little bit about the features. Continue to be forgiving as we work through this new technology, but I'll throw it back to you, Mary, to start your presentation, Leading Wellbeing During a Pandemic.
Great, thanks, Karen. Well, normally we have these discussion groups, as you can see on the left-hand side of the page here. And as Karen said, for us to make this the interactive piece that normally Wake Up with Wellness is, that's where these polls, the word clouds, and a little game I have come into play. On the right-hand side is your breakfast, so please enjoy, because for those of you that did sign up early and planned to attend, your money that you had donated or paid for breakfast is now donated to Interfaith Outreach. So we're really pleased to be able to step up and support, especially during this time. And the next thing is the Stand Up for Health. And this is my little game to keep us going. So it kind of simulates Where's Waldo. And throughout the presentation, you're going to see these little Stand Up for Health icons. And some not as obvious as others. The idea here is because we're wellness people, we know that we should be moving regularly, right? So anytime you see stand up, stand up. If you are standing up, aha, I caught you. I'd like you to do 1 or 2 squats. So let's keep movement throughout this because, again, technology puts us in a different state than we're normally used to. So again, thanks for coming. The first question I have in this darkness that has been surrounding us, this unknown, this fearfulness, all these things that have been going around us has kind of led us to slide more towards the feelings of hopelessness, fear, anxiety. But there are some good things coming out of this pandemic, I believe. And my question to you is, what is your silver lining? What are the things that you have found that have been more positive coming out of this pandemic? Because we have a number of people on the session, can you just limit that to 2 words? And I'm going to ask that you go ahead and start submitting that. So what is your silver lining? And while you're doing that, I'm going to share a few of mine. One is I have been either walking or biking to work each day, and it's a 3-mile one-way commute. And the time that I have found in the peacefulness and being able to really pretty much do a moving meditation for myself on my way into work has really been a silver lining for me. And I started that because I was the only one coming to work, the only one in our office as everybody else was gone. So that's my silver lining. And yes, it was more than 2 words, but I have the prerogative because the camera's on me. So let's look at some of the word cloud. Can you go ahead? I'm sorry, I should have reminded you to use the word cloud link. It's at the bottom. And it should say word cloud because then we can bring it up together so everybody can see it. I think some of you put it in the chat feature. We need it in the word cloud. Can you whisper words to me? Mm-hmm. So here's what I see coming in at us right now. Jenna's helping me here. Family time, nature, playing cards with the family, extra time with my kids. Lots of family is coming in as you're seeing. Let's see if there's one I can pick out that's kind of, it's coming in really fast here, so it's hard to read. Working from home, learning new technology, sweatpants, gotta love sweatpants, slowing down. This is awesome, keep putting them in. The word cloud will keep going here for a second. And as this came up to me because when I look at the silver linings and as a leader, not only in wellness, but also as a leader of a company, I can tell you personally that I need to lean heavily on these silver linings, that people are counting on me to pilot this ship. And I need that motivation and inspiration in order to be able to take that helm and lead with confidence. And lean into it. So these silver linings for me is a big deal. And I hope that you begin to lean on those as a leader and use them to keep that positivity and that motivation going forward. So now we're going to try a little poll technology here. So my first question for the poll is, and again, the poll button is at the bottom of your screen. Do you believe the pandemic has heightened the importance of worksite wellness? Yes, I think it's opening doors with a renewed focus on employee well-being. Or, I'm not sure. There's a heightened awareness, but is it a reaction to this pandemic? Or perhaps an epiphany of the pandemic? And the last one is no. The heightened awareness seems to be really COVID-19 focus, the safety focus. So not so much there. let us know your question, how you feel about this. So Jen is telling me that yes, and I'm looking that the polls are really strong with that 90% yes. We have a few that are unsure, and I'm really happy to say nobody thinks that, or one person, sorry, thinks that it really hasn't changed. So I'm excited to see that. And the reason I am is because this is opening new doors of opportunity for worksite wellness. We need to take our hold of this and actually move our programming towards this. So these silver linings, this opportunity to open doors is where we can start to lead wellness. Leading through change is difficult. And the one thing we know that when you lead through change, and we're all leaders here, is you can't lead by the seat of your pants. You can't just throwing things out, reacting to what's happening is difficult in change. People's emotions are high. Tolerance is low. They're overwhelmed. They're reactive into what's happening. And it's really kind of a tinderbox that's going on right now. And we felt that tinderbox explode in Minneapolis for a different reason. But it's no different that this is a tough time for everyone. So the 4 things we can do as leaders and inspirers is to think through these key components. And the first one is a compelling plan. The second one is transparency, how we present ourselves, which is honesty or hope. Then we have involvement, and that is getting the people around us to help design this future. And then hope. What's possible, what's out there? And we just looked at those silver linings. So let's start with the compelling plan. Oh, look, I believe it's a Stand Up for Health icon. Please join me. Okay, you can stay standing too if you'd like. That's all on you. So this compelling plan is what a compelling plan is. It is something that inspires people or motivates people to want to be part of it. So we can put plans together and throw them out there, but when we don't get the feedback and the input of others, it often lacks that sense of engagement. Why would I look at this? So a compelling plan really motivates people. And we do that going back to the same things we say over and over again. If you don't have goals, you need them. People need to know where you're headed, where you're going, why should I jump on this bandwagon? The objectives are, how are we going to get there? So we're going to join the bandwagon, but how are we going to get there? Because right now in chaos, you need focus and direction. And the last thing is metrics. If we're heading here, how do we know that we made it? How do we know the ship's pulled into port? What did we achieve by doing this? So that's a compelling plan. What's staggering to me is I heard a statistics about a month ago in listening to a business presentation, and it was stated that only 54% of organizations, businesses, have a plan, have an annual plan of where they're headed. 54%. That leads a whole lot of people out there steering a ship in a direction they don't know quite where they're headed. So I would like to know, A, how many of you have an annual plan? But more importantly, to focus us in on our situation right now, going to the polls, do you have a wellness plan in response to COVID-19? Yes, we developed and modified the plan we currently had, and we're responding to this. Kind of, we're just continuing with the plan we had. Not really. We're certainly pushing stuff out there, offering services and support, but it's hard to know what's happening. And lastly is never had a plan, still don't have a plan. And as your votes are coming in, I'm going to have Jenna show me what's happening here. And let's see. So yes, that's exciting. People have a plan and have moved their plan. We have 16% of the votes, kind of. We're working on that, and votes are still coming in here. We have 22% that are saying not really. And so far, there is nothing that, or no one on the never had a plan. So I'm going to give this a second more because the polls are still coming in. And we are beating the norms of most companies in that 58% of us seem to have a plan. So kudos to the 58% that have that plan. Yay! Because it's really important when we lead through change that people know where we're headed. If you kind of have that plan, I'm going to encourage you to think about how do we change that? How do we move forward? A consultant that I heard it was just yesterday, I was listening again to a business transformation, and the consultant said, don't underestimate the power of change that is happening right now. If you don't have a plan and you haven't updated the plan you have, or haven't updated the plan you have with new strategies to address this change, you are going to have a really steep climb back. And I believe the same thing for wellness. And what we have to remember is if we're just pushing information out, for those of you in kind of that not really category, even the kind of category we're continuing to push information out, pushing it out, is we have to be cautious that all this information we're pushing out doesn't feel reactive to our participants and add more chaos to what they're already feeling in this world of chaos. So do think about that as you're moving forward and executing. Have you helped people understand where are we headed, why are we going there, and how do we know that we've gotten there? So let's switch a little bit to transparency. What does that mean? And in my book, transparency means we're building trust. People don't follow people they can't trust. And you are going to really struggle to get any engagement or follow through without that trust. And what I look at as building trust is when we lead by example. You need to be authentic, show your vulnerability, apologize for mistakes, heighten the work that, and lift up that work your employees are doing and give them the kudos for it. It's being appreciative of these people and the change that they're going through and everything that they're working for in this whole new life of working from home or working under conditions with masks and everything else. So be appreciative and say it often and say it a lot. Honesty is really one of those things that in a difficult situation, people need to know, but we also need to sprinkle and balance in that feeling of hope with it. I will tell you, in transparency, brutal honesty, which is what some people move forward with, without that hope or purpose of moving forward, is just plain destructive. So transparency needs to be monitored in a way that has people engaged and involved with it. Integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. And I have to say that integrity is doing the right thing as a leader, especially when people are watching. So next we have involvement. So we went through this compelling plan and our transparency, involvement. And involvement is really thinking about how are you using your circle of influence right now. When we get in crisis, in times of chaos, we tend to pull in. We tend to say, I'll just do it. I'll get it done. I can figure this out. When in reality, we actually need to be reaching out. People will more easily commit to a future and get on board with your compelling plan if they have some insight and input into it. So my question to you, how are you using your wellness committees right now? Have you even talked to them since this happened? If you don't have a wellness committee, have you thought about having one? Because they are the eyes and ears and voice of your program. So engage your wellness committee members if you are already doing it. And if you are, high fives all around. The next thing is to really think about those frontline people. If you're back to work, it's finding out, asking those supervisors and mid-managers, what is it that's going on with you? What are you most concerned about, especially in the area of well-being of your staff? And get their honest feedback and input, and even ask for some solutions. Because this is what gets people on board. We can't pull in, hunker in, and be by ourselves. Whoops. And I'm echoing. Sorry, just kidding. So it's a power of choice, and we need to step forward, and we need to provide that for our employees as well. I will tell you, one of the things that people are feeling right now is a lot of rules. The government has rules around us with stay-at-home orders. We need to be wearing masks when we do simple things like go to the grocery store. We need to sanitize regularly. We are just in this bubble of caution. So as we're in that, we need to pull people in and give them a choice and help them be involved in the solution. Don't just do it to them, do it with them. And the last one then is hope. And hope is really, it's what's possible, what's out there, what can we do? So it's balancing that honesty with possibility. It's looking for those silver linings and taking tough messages and adding the possibilities with them. I will share just a personal story about this hope. I tend to be a fairly optimistic person, so I look at things glass half full, and that can be, again, it can be a pro and it can be a con, right? With everything, there's a balance. And as we first headed into COVID-19 back in March for people in Minneapolis, there was this feeling of, fearfulness and scared, and what does this mean? Will I have a job? What's going to happen? We love HealthSource for my team. Will we have a future? And they were really concerned. And so I really swung very quickly to thinking, you know what? I have to step out of this spinning of unknownness and step into more of that leadership and intently lead forward. And in doing that, I did pull a lot of hope into my conversations. I did weekly videos to keep connected with our team. And I really wanted to acknowledge that, yeah, we're in a tough time, but there's hope out there. And here's what happened that was unbeknownst to me, is that the team, I was in a different place. Mentally, I had moved through this challenge pretty fast and was looking at the future. And they were still in the present. They were in the here and now. And I share this story because they came back to me and said, "You're taking this pretty lightly. Are you serious about how, this can, what's happening?" And it was kind of a huge aha moment for me in that, oh my gosh, I moved too quickly to the hope and didn't let us get through this process of the seriousness and where we were at. So hope is a powerful tool, but we need to balance it and we need to use it in the right way. And that's with transparency and certainly in possibilities that are out there. So vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others. This is something that it happens to be a place where I love to play, a space I love to play in, but I have to remember that not everybody's quite there with me. I love this picture because in the crystal ball, look at that, a Stand Up for Health icon. So stand up. Whoops, I should do what I say, right? I'm too busy trying to lead and not thinking about what I'm saying. What I really want to get at here is that we look through this crystal ball, and the crystal ball, it has still a whole lot of unknowns in it. We don't know where we're headed yet. So it's even more important that with this vision, we add a compelling plan. Otherwise, a plan is just words if people don't know where they're headed. Close our eyes to the past and open our heart and mind to new beginnings. This is how we're going to see the possibilities. This is how you're going to lead with intention. We, as I've said over and over, and as you know, reiterating the fact that we are in chaos right now. People are in this constant transformation. It's just moving all around us. It lacks certainty, it lacks clarity. People don't know what's next, which is creating anxiety. They're feeling overwhelmed. There's this, we went through this kind of panic motion, and now we're into this return to work. What does that mean? Will I get sick? Are people ready? I'm super excited about getting back. Finally, I have people I can talk to. The emotions are everywhere. But what I encourage us, again, to lead into this intention is we've got to provide focus, that we need a direction and helping people move past this. And quite frankly, I don't know what that duck is doing up in the right-hand corner, but also realize that not everybody's going to follow, and it's okay. So my next question in our poll is, prior to COVID-19, how important was health and well-being in your organization or to your clients? Because I know some of you have clients versus in-house organizations. So go ahead and down to the poll again at the bottom. Is it extremely important? Leadership bought into it and is part of these goals and strategies. It's highly important. We have annual plans and wellness committees. It's tied to the benefits design. It's important for sure. We communicate regularly and we do activities throughout the year. Yeah, we haven't quite made it there yet. It's low importance. We do offer resources and have open enrollment and stuff, but we really don't have that plan, the wellness committee, that direction, that focus. And then, of course, what's wellness? So go ahead and bring your poll forward, please. Okay, and it looks like highly important. It's moving in. Remember at the beginning, we talked about that very first poll saying, hey, we think that this is opening new doors for us. So we have about 44% of the people saying it's highly important. We have plans and wellness committees. We have about 25% of the people saying it's extremely important that, yes, leadership bought into this even before COVID-19. And then another 25% saying it's important and we do communicate it, but it hasn't kind of hit the top rung of the ladder yet. So before we move on to the next conversation, I'd like to ask you this next poll question. So this was before you're saying that, yep, it was important. Now, in the past 3 months, how has the importance of health and well-being shifted in your organization or with your clients? So go ahead. Is it still extremely important? It's highly important. Leadership wants to know more about what's being done, so it's raised that bar. It's important. We have had more focus than we did in the past. It's low importance because they're just too worried about finances and getting people back to work, and is production going to be there? And then we still have the what's wellness bucket. So go ahead and please vote for where you're standing. So it looks like it's coming in. We have 34% of the people say it's highly important. We have 25% saying it's important. And we have another, let's see, it's still coming in. We have about 30% saying it's extremely important. Keep coming in, and we're looking at it's highly important. We're going to go ahead and close the votes here in a sec. So prior to COVID, you're saying it was highly important, the bulk, or 50% of you, and then we were split 25-25 with extremely and important, and you're saying it's pretty much the same. Interestingly, the extremely important has kind of dropped a little bit, highly important is still there, and important has gone up a little bit. So as we head into this time, it's our role as leaders, as people to help push that pebble forward, is that we help leadership and those connected with us to realize that this is a reality right now. That physical health, mental health, emotional health, financial health, social health, all of these are going to impact our economic health. They are going to make a difference in where our country moves forward, in where your company moves forward, and how your company moves forward. So for those of you that have hit the extremely important button, high five, keep it there. For those of you in the highly important, I think this is a really great time to strike while the iron's hot and that door is open. You said, we think wellness is more focused than it ever has been in the very beginning, and everyone thought it was really had moved forward. So take that time and really, how do you lift this up? Through that compelling plan, through new endeavors for wellness. For those of you that are kind of at the bottom of that, it's important. You were doing it, but there's other focus, especially if it's a focus on financial, is to lift this up, to say, if we don't take care of our people, we are going to pay the price in the economic health. And it's going to come through productivity. And when I say productivity, I almost, in this pandemic situation, I'm talking getting back to work, functioning at 80%, 90% capacity when we do come back to work because of all the things that are happening with this pandemic. So it's not, it is productivity, but productivity that's being impacted by different things. So we talked about the compelling plan, the transparency, the involvement, and the hope. And now it's taking it to the next level. So in a compelling plan, what's most important? How do we get there? How do we know that this is the next step? The most important thing you can do right now is not guess what leadership is looking for, because right now you just said, we believe it's important to leadership. And my question to you is, do you know what is important to leadership? So don't try to guess. Don't try to figure this out by yourself and isolate yourself in. You need to ask. And asking them for the top 3 things. What is the most important? And if you don't have a direct line to the C-suite, go to your leader and certainly colleagues around you. But it's critical to get feedback on what's most important. You may be surprised. Leaders that you think are all about the bottom line may come back and say, I am really concerned about balancing work and family. Boy, I am really concerned about how we're going to get people back, and are they going to feel safe when they come back to work? We have stress. I am so concerned about the stress, the anxiety, the angst, the fear. They may come back and say, you know what? The mental health issues is really concerning to me because I can see what's happening in my own family. Ask. This is our model about a best practice program. And again, oftentimes what happens is wellness professionals, we want to fix, we want to help people, we want to get there. So we dive right into those programs and events or communications and trying to get things out. When in essence, we need to step back, we need to fly a bit higher, and we need to go back to those questions of what is that plan going to be? What's our compelling plan? And is that compelling plan based on what leadership is looking for? If it's how do we get people back to work safely, I'm going to go back to our conversations about how are you involving people? Who do you need in your circle of influence to get people back to work safely? And you're saying, well, that's really not my role. Au contraire, it is your role. It's the circle of influence. It's pulling the safety people in. It's pulling HR benefits people in with you to figure this out. And whoever else is in that circle of influence, maybe it's an on-site medical clinic if you have that. So it is a team of pulling this together. And so having that as part of your compelling plan to share with leadership is going to be really important. You say, oh, well, that's kind of short-lived. It may be short-lived, but then you should have the next step ready to go. Mental health issues are something that is bubbling up more and more and more. And we know this is a huge concern of our country, and especially a concern for people in worksite and well-being. And I will tell you, it's a huge concern for leadership as well. So when we think about mental health issues, what are we doing to train our middle management and frontline supervisors to recognize there's issues? It's not just continuing to pump out EAP numbers and more information, more communication. That's important, but to get to the root of it, we have to go deeper. There's new resources out there. I'm not saying don't certainly lift up your EAP. There's virtual health now, and mental health is coming through that, which I think is going to be a whole new opportunity for us. You know, there's certainly coaching opportunities. So think about how you're going to go deeper with this. I am going to take one step now, and I told you I'm not going to dive into the details, but this was such a great example for me of a school district. Wayzata High School District is in the West Metro of Minneapolis, and they put together this virtual calming room on their website. And the reason I'm lifting it up, because we could all do this. Is it going to be getting to the root of the issue? No. Is it going to be able to help support people with where they're experiencing now? Yeah. It's one of those immediate coping skills. And I did put the website at the bottom. I invite you to go out and look at it. This is just a snapshot, not nearly as well done, but it's a pretty cool website. And each one of these, it digs deeper and deeper. So just take a scope, take a peek at it. Okay, the next thing, we have our compelling plan, and we're going to look at some transparency here. So we talked about internally, what does this mean as a leader? But externally, it's communication. And communicate can't be said enough. The data tells us it takes 7 times of hearing something before you hear it the first time. Unless you are ready to accept this information, you're in a point where I need to hear this. Will you take it in the first time? So please remember, saying it once, the one and done, is that just that. It's going to be a blip on the radar screen, and people are probably may or may not hear it depending on where they are at and ready to receive it. So communicate it multiple times in multiple ways. The other thing I want to share with you, and I feel like this is a real strategy that sales uses a lot, is the WIFM. What's in it for me? Why should I care? So you have this plan. I haven't been involved in it. There's, I don't know what's happening. Why should I care? And that needs to come out in your communications. It's the WIFM. Hey, we know it's a really stressful time right now. We understand that anxiety is high and fear of kind of coming back to work is high. So the WIFM for those people is, how do I feel better? How can you help me not feel this churning and this anxiety? So make sure that it's not just tossing resources to people, but it's helping them understand what's in it for me. Involvement. I said the circle of influence before. I can't say it enough. It's our job as leaders and influencers to bridge connections. We're there to help connect different departments together, different resources together, because leading a pandemic, through a pandemic, you can't do this alone. You need to connect with others. So it's finding those collaborative solutions and bringing people together to work in harmony. And this may be outside your organization. This can be also looking at community things as well. And what are we doing to support the community around us? It can be, don't keep it in a contained box of the worksite walls. Let it penetrate and go further into it. Oh, and by the way, Stand Up for Health in the left-hand corner. I may have missed the other ones, but that's your job to see where's Waldo, right? So now we have some hope again, and that is partnering with solutions. It's, again, connecting people, providing that direction, and involving these partners together. So pulling people together is going to help with that what's possible. What can we do? Because everyone, the old cliche, there's strength in numbers, and there is strength in numbers. So what are you doing to pull together the people you work with? What are you doing? How are you engaging your wellness committees? How are you engaging the people around you? How are you engaging your colleagues to help support this? We know that people follow leaders because they trust them, because they're confident, they show care and empathy to people, they communicate regularly and succinctly, and they're consistent with their communication. They don't keep changing the finish line on people. They're consistent with this goal that's the end point. So as we look at this confidence, how are you clearly stating what you want to be accomplished? Not burying it a bunch of stuff. Pull it out and say, folks, this is where we're headed. In the care, people know that you're going to connect emotionally through a story, through other venues, with by showing that empathy, and that's how people are going to follow you. As a leader, you should be always asking yourself, why should people follow me? Okay, so it's time for us to have a little bit more of interaction and some fun here and lighten things up a bit. So, pandemic, this has brought us into what I call a whole new vocabulary. So I'd like you to go down to the bottom of your page again and click on the word cloud and share these new words of a pandemic with us. Please try to limit it to 2 again because of just the sheer volume of information that's going to be coming in at us. But what are new vocabulary words for you? I'm going to share one that came up yesterday, and I had to laugh because I feel like with all these Zoom calls and face-to-face times and whatever technology you're using, the common word that seems to come through is you watch people's lips go, and then it's, you're muted. So I feel like one of the new terms that has come out of this is, you're muted. I'm going to turn here to Jenna and see what are you all telling me? Well, social distancing definitely has taken it out. Anger management, interesting. Unprecedented times. Yeah, there's a piece of me that wants to gag now every time I hear that word. It's the new normal. Hand sanitize, don't forget. Oh, and your mask. Let's see. They're coming in fast and furious here. Oh, the new normal. Did I say that? And let's see, I can pull out a few more here. It is, I got to actually stick on my glasses because unless it's the ones that lots of people voted for, I can hardly read them. Trust has come out of this, which is a really exciting piece of this. And I'm going to bring this back to some of these words are going to be the pandemic of 2020. Face masks, unprecedented times, hand washing. But I go back to those silver linings. We see trust here. We see new technology. We see Zoom meetings as, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to sell Zoom by any chance. It just happens to be the Kleenex version of a tissue, right? Zoom meetings. These are going to be the new words. And here's how I basically look at the reactions of people right now. They're fearful, and they might still be fearful, especially several weeks ago. Fear was driving this. People were hunkering down, they were hiding. I must have sanitized my hands 100 times in the office, and I was the only one here. So we were driving some crazy behaviors. I think we're moving more towards this caged up feeling now. I can't get out. I feel like I'm getting restless. I can't stand the fact I can't connect with people. We have those high extroverts, man, they just want to hug someone, right? So people are feeling caged. And then, of course, you have the group that really, quite frankly, doesn't care. They just want to get this over with. I'm going to go out. I don't really care. And gee, look at our dog that doesn't care. He does care because he has a stand up for health on his collar. What these reactions are driving and the experience that people are going through, and what we have to be careful is labeling it. We are all experiencing it. This, it can be hourly, it can be daily, it can be weekly. But we're going through these emotions very, very quickly, and that's the pandemic of change, right? We experience a lot of different things. So back to our poll. what I would like to know from you is, what is your top struggle right now? At the bottom again, is it the blending of work and family? And I say blending because it's not balancing. It's blending work and family right now. Is it just working from home? Is it the stress of the unknown? What's going to happen? Where are we headed? Is it tired of being cooped up? My dog in the cage? Or the fear of getting COVID-19. It's still there. It's still very real. We're seeing the social distancing was curbing the trends, and now there's states where it's exceeding again as the social distancing got let up. So for you, what is your biggest struggle right now? And this is that transparency piece, right, people? That you're saying, here's where I feel right now. And it's okay to feel that. So it seems as though 60% of the people are still in this stress of the unknown. 16% is blending work and family. We have, and they're still coming in. We have about 20% tired of being cooped up. And then a very small percentage is the fear of COVID-19. And it's not diminishing these feelings at all by this ranking, but to realize that people are in a lot of different spaces with this. And the stress of the unknown is still out there. The crystal ball that isn't working very well is really creating angst for people. So my question to you is, in your communications, in your building of your COVID-19 plan, how are you addressing these? How are you addressing the fact that blending work and family for a chunk of, 16% of this particular group here is stressful? I don't know how to do this. We have a staff here that, we have a multiple staff that have children in school, they have children not in school, and then they have trying to fit in work, and they have a spouse working at home, and they live further away, so the Wi-Fi is spotty at best, and the kids were trying to be online at school, and yada, yada, yada. It's not that we're going to fix this, it's how can we help support this? And I look at that as really helping people with these self-care activities. What are you doing to take care of yourself? This time, I'm going to ask you to put into the chat, what are some of the things that you're doing to take care of yourself? I have found, as I said before, is walking to work, but this renewed joy in what I have seen and found and my commute in is some mornings there's just this chorus of birds. Other mornings the frogs are singing so loud they're drowning out the birds. And yesterday when I came in, it was fairly quiet, and I really noticed how quiet it was. But I swear the baby squirrels were kicked out of the nest, because I'm not exaggerating. I bet there was a dozen squirrels on that bike path. So my ride in was dodging baby squirrels. It's just been, again, a silver lining for me, but it's really been a great self-care activity for me because it allows me that time to meditate, to quiet my mind, to put myself in a good place. So I would say that's one of my top self-care activities. And then certainly I lean towards a hot bath with some Epsom salts, some lavender Epsom salts, and occasionally a glass of wine might join me in the bathtub. So those are kind of my two real big go-tos. So find that for yourself. And if you don't have it, that should be your number one priority right now, because it is our job as leaders in wellness to take care of the caregivers. And the caregivers may be our clients, it may be our HR colleagues, it could potentially be us and our parents and being the sandwich generation. So how are we helping these people move through this? And remember that there is this pillar that we can support. Remind your colleagues, your friends, your significant others, your employees that it's important that you have self-care activities and that you do them either daily or regularly within the week. A role that we can play as a leader and an influencer is to listen. It's one of the biggest gifts you can give someone, is to ask and then to listen. And don't try to fix it. Just guide them and potentially help them prioritize. Again, in this world of chaos, we need prioritization. And then we have this care and empathy. It goes a long way. And again, I bring back the WIFM. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, we talked about the compelling plan and how important it is to ask those questions, the transparency, and that we need to communicate and communicate and communicate, the involvement in getting those circle of influencers and other people adding to the plan, because we know when people are involved in the future, they're going to be part of it. They're going to engage heavily and they're going to want to move forward. And lastly is partnering in those solutions. I am not meaning to diminish the feeling of physical and financial and intellectual, emotional, social well-being, what many of us have turned to in building the components of our program around. They're critical right now. But what I'm saying is without a compelling plan, without that transparency and communicating well what's going on and the involvement and the hope, it's just that. It's a plan. It's there are resources out there that don't have any direction or focus for people. And when people are in chaos, they need focus. So we're going to stop here and open it up for some questions. So, Karen, I'm going to pitch it back to you
Yeah. So, Mary, I just want to let you know while you were presenting that there was a squat competition going on. So
awesome!
Some people up the ante with 10 squats, doubling that. So not just standing, but doing more than that. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all those people that were jumping on that bandwagon.
Awesome!
I also just wanted to share a couple of comments, Mary, that were made. One of them was that it seems like we need to redefine the term work site, as many have expanded their work site to home. Mm-hmm. So, just thinking about that.
Absolutely.
In this as well. And one of the questions too that I thought I would just answer was, is this being recorded and can we get a copy of the presentation? And yes, it is recorded. You will have access to come back into Crowdcast to just replay it if you'd like to. Eventually, we'll have it on our website as well. And if you do want a copy of Mary's presentation, we can certainly get that to you. So we could send that out in an email or something as well. So I just wanted everyone to know that. So bubbling up at the top, Mary, is a question. Our company is monitoring and limiting electronic messages to employees at this time. So how can we reach employees at home with wellness other than by email?
Well, it's a great question. And if I had, the answers to everything, I'd be sitting on a beach in Maui, right? No, I wouldn't, because they're quarantined. In all seriousness, first of all, I would like to kind of tie in that worksite question, and I agree with you. Worksite, I view myself again, I'm kind of this big picture thinker. Is a worksite is our organization, and where we happen to work to report we're still a community that's called a worksite. So that's how I kind of define the term for myself. And you're very right. We have on campus now and off campus or homes that we're working from. So as the challenge with the whole technology piece is, first of all, I would say it's lifting up to those in the powers of be that have kind of curtailed that, explaining that, the less we communicate with our people, the more fractional this is going to feel. So is there other ways? And there could be, maybe you have a YouTube channel where you're posting, different things, whether it's meditation or a workout video, or even just saying, hey, here's where we're at. Here's what we're doing in wellness. The email communication, it could be also reaching out as best you can and getting people to invite in or self-select to be part of a different email system, catalog, for lack of better words, so you have kind of a membership base that you can always be reaching out to people with.
Yep.
And if email isn't the right thing because of the technology issue, I would think about how can we use text in a different way? Can people self-register for receiving a regular text? How do we go back through those supervisors and managers and say, how are you communicating with your people? How are you reaching out to them? So we have to be a little bit thinking outside of the box here and intuitive into figuring out who else is communicating with these people. My guess is, much like HealthSource, the supervisors and managers are in regular communication and Zoom meetings with their staff. So how do we fuel them with the resources needed to be able to talk about this?
Yeah, and that's great. And I just want to remind everyone that you can actually comment on these questions. And Anna Green just posted that in one of your emails that you send out, that you're permitted to send, you could emphasize a resource that you'll be utilizing to continually add in challenges, resources, and information. So if you don't have a portal site already, you could utilize a Microsoft Yammer page, YouTube channel, create a free Wix site, etc. When employees are looking for health and wellness tips, they could visit your page or site.
Wonderful. Excellent.
So the next question is, I know how we feel here about employee wellness, but how are your customers viewing their wellness budgets right now? Expandable, expanding, contracting, or staying the same?
Well, and I certainly can speak for, the HealthSource customers, and it's all over the board. And I really believe that it's highly dependent on the types of services that are being done. I network with 10 CEOs of wellness companies throughout the country, and I will tell you that we've all experienced different things. HealthSource, personally, we have contracts that we manage fitness centers. Well, it depends on who's over those contracts. What we're learning is facilities people, it's all about, hey, the fitness center's closed, why would we have you? And we're learning that the HR people, or when the contracts run through, HR and benefits, it's much more about what are you doing for our people when they can't be at the center. So the conversations are very differently. I would say that we've also seen that, in as much like ourselves in our own businesses, is that you have to cut back, you have to tighten the purse strings right now if you're in those industries being impacted by the pandemic. Now, if you look at, my guess is right now that cardboard box makers are doing pretty dang well, and they're trying to keep up supply and demand, right? As we've turned to shipping everything. You think about grocery stores and or other critical essential workers. So those tend to have a bigger budget to work with, but they're pulling back because they're very cautious about how much can we throw at our employees because we're asking them to work in overdrive. So I would say the budgets, our experience at HealthSource and what I was hearing from these other CEOs is that the budgets are staying kind of neutral. People aren't going to be buying right now. We have some people asking to pare back a bit. And we have had some clients that say, you know what, we just can't do it right now. We are shut down. We don't have a good way to reach our people. So I know that was not the exact answer of, well, here's the data, but it is very, very dependent on industry and probably the size of the company.
So I just want to catch a couple more questions here. We have like one more minute. Maybe we can do 1 minute. So how can we encourage and empower more employees to work through emotional and mental well-being versus just providing them resources and opportunities to engage?
The whole mental health, one of my real hopes of the silver lining of this pandemic is that mental health is lifted up and recognized for what it is. It's not that we haven't talked about this in wellness for the past decade and a half. We have been, but I would love to see mental health in the place that breast health was 20 years ago. You just didn't talk about breast health. And now it's kind of out there, everybody talks that, we have the Jane Bratton walks, we have, mammogram checks. We're very, very forthright with it all. So my biggest goal is to say, I hope the stigma around mental health is broken down and this becomes an easier place for us to talk about it. The resources and what we, work to provide our employees, I again believe that we need to go through and pull in our circle of influence. How do we help our managers and frontline supervisors recognize where people are at right now? And people that are really in a, what I'm going to call mental health space versus a stressful pace, which would be more mental well-being. If they're in a mental health space, they need to be recognized and connected. Whether it's an EAP, a virtual online clinic, but they need to be ushered forward fairly quickly into somebody that can provide care for them. In the mental well-being world, I do feel like it's lifting up resources. Again, if you can engage people into it, like by doing a live meditation and videotaping it, and putting it live or streamed through something like a YouTube, you're going to pull more people into it than just saying, hey, you can go out here and watch this meditation video. So anytime we can pull people in to interact with each other would be awesome. So I know we have to kind of close things down here and move on. We appreciate your time, and it looks like we've reached the top of the hour. So now more than ever, I can't say enough that we need to lead and we need to influence. The door has been open for wellness. You told us that in the beginning. So how are we going to get everybody flying in the same direction? And I'd also like to remind us that people need to care for each other. So how are we connecting and caring and lifting up these opportunities to support our communities during this really difficult time? And personally, I see that there's been a huge silver lining around that with the amount of people reaching out and connecting. Again, at the bottom is the donation button. If you feel so inclined, you can certainly donate towards interfaith outreach and community partners. That's who we're lifting up to support during this time. You may have your own personal one, so I encourage you to reach out to that. So I want to thank you again for being part of our Wake Up with Wellness. I apologize that the virtual breakfast may not have been quite as tasty as the real one, but hopefully you fill that in with your own. So thanks so much. Seize the day.
Yes, and thank you for coming. We have a little thank you button at the bottom, and that's going to just link you to a page on our website where we have some free resources available to you. So feel free to check that out. And we look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully next Wake Up with Wellness breakfast. Have a great day.